Hi, everyone. I'm Christy Joy, and I'm here with Bonnie Thompson. And today we're going to be having a conversation about holiday overwhelm from the perspective of the nervous system and nervous system health. And we asked people for their concerns and issues that they, deal with during the holiday season. And I always think this is an interesting time because in nature, it's a time that we are kind of being led to slow down. The days are shorter and to go more inward. Yet we go right into this holiday season of social gatherings and shopping and, lots of activity and travel. So it's an interesting time to try to keep that balance. Yeah, so some of the kind of concerns that people have expressed and some of the things that we've noticed ourselves are, for one thing, as the title of our talk is overwhelm. So all of these things can be overwhelming to our nervous systems. I know for me, one of the most overwhelming things is because I'm pretty introverted and I tend to sensory overload
Mhm,
is social gatherings and shopping in crowded stores. That can really be a big strain on my system.
mhm.
So, just being very mindful, as we discussed this earlier, mindfulness and self awareness kind of came out as the big theme for how to navigate our way through this, and as well as intention.
Mhm.
So, it's easy to just kind of get dragged along
Yes.
into what you always do, as a family or
Right.
individually during the holiday season. So, perhaps just really considering what your intention is for yourself and your family for the holiday season, and knowing that it doesn't have to be exactly what it's always been in the past, giving yourself that permission.
Well, and it's not exactly what it has been in the past, you
True.
know?
Yeah.
So there's added stressors these last few years that weren't there previously that are piling on top of all the stuff that we've had on our list already. So now when we have gatherings, we're dealing with the COVID question
Mhm.
and who's vaccinated and who's not and how we worry about that. So there's these added things
Mhm.
with that pile on top of everything else that's a challenge there. Um, which brings up to the thought there are a lot of people that are dealing with loss
Mm.
um, in so many forms, not just losing family members,
Right.
but loss of employment, loss of connection with people. A lot of people being having to work from home and being more isolated.
Mhm.
And so those are part of the mix with this. You know, there's some people that are immune compromised that can't gather with family members or are afraid to. So there's so many pieces that are connected with all of this, and we have so much attachment to these things. So
Right, and somebody commented that a lot of the concerts and, performances and things that she normally enjoys aren't happening,
mhm,
so it's kind of taking some of those enjoyable pieces out, and just kind of the stressful things
right,
are remaining for her.
right,
So
right. Which comes back to that really important thing of the intention
mhm,
and taking some time to really get clear about what is it you want to feel, what do you want to experience with the holidays.
mhm,
And I really like that question of what do you want to feel
mhm,
as opposed to what do you want to do, because there's so much emphasis on doing. You know, you've got to do all these things, you've got these long to-do lists, and they all sound wonderful, But how does that make you feel? And what's going on internally around that? So, I look at this long list of, yeah, I'd love to go to the concerts. I'd love to do gatherings. I'd love to um, get Christmas cards out. That hasn't happened for me for years. Not because I don't love people, but it's just one of those things where it's just like, I just I can't do it all as much as I would love to
Yeah.
do all those things. So getting clear about what what you want to feel for the holidays, and then what are those things that fit that for you.
Yes.
And so if one part of that doesn't feel good to you, then maybe you can let that go. And maybe it's just you let it go this year.
Right.
Um,
And
too,
one of
because
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say there's we have traditions,
Mhm.
and there's so much emotional attachment to a lot of the traditions that we have. And so the idea of letting go of some of those things can be really difficult. But if we can give ourselves permission to, okay, this year,
Mm,
I'm going to let that go. Maybe next year I can revisit it. So not taking it away from yourself entirely
yeah. Well,
might
that
be.
makes me think of some of the other comments that we received, and there was kind of this theme of the expectations, for from yourself for what Christmas or the holiday season or New Year's or whatever it is supposed to be, these
Mhm.
family gatherings, but also meeting other people's expectations. So I think there can be a lot of pressure that way. And that kind of
Right.
fits in with our survival strategies. There's a lot of
Yeah.
appeasement and perfectionism that can happen
Right.
from this.
Which are both survival strategies. Those are ways that we help ourselves feel safe.
Accepted,
Um,
connected,
yes.
belonging.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which
So
are
understanding that there's some strong biological
yes.
drives behind all of this. So I think having that understanding gives us some room and some self compassion and some choice in what
Yeah.
we're doing.
Yeah. And I think that's another really important point is that awareness of, okay, so there's a part of me that's feeling a need to do all of these things. And if we can have that self-compassion of recognizing that that's part of why I'm trying to do all of these things.
Mhm.
And and if we can recognize that and then offer that self-compassion to that part that is feeling threatened by the idea of not making everyone happy.
Mm.
Because a lot of these things we do are because we're trying to make people happy, right?
Yes.
Trying to have a wonderful experience for other people. One of the commenters for us talked about how she spends her holidays trying to manage everybody else's stress.
Mm.
And holy moly, that is a lot of pressure
That
to,
is.
you're trying to not just make everybody happy, but you're also trying to help other people who are dealing with all of their stress about the holidays.
Mhm.
That's a lot.
That's a lot
Um,
on yourself for sure.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so if you can step back enough from it to look at it and say, okay, why am I doing this thing?
Mm.
Is this for me? And there's nothing wrong with doing something for other people
Right.
that helps them experience some happiness, as long as it's not taking away
Not to your
from our
detriment.
happiness.
Mhm.
So I enjoy cooking and I like making the goodies. But if and there's a lot of pressure to make all of them. The family has their list. I have a practice of asking everybody, okay, so what if there was one thing you absolutely had to have for Christmas? What is that?
Mm.
And everybody's got a different thing. But but I could make all the things, but that's too much. And so, How can I limit that? I still enjoy doing it, but where's the point where it's not fun anymore and it's pressure to do all this stuff? And so that awareness of what's happening for me
Yes.
around that
Yeah.
is really key.
Yeah.
Is it joyful for me still, or is it not? So um, you were explaining something to me earlier about the practice of tell me again how that worked. I
Yeah. So when you are presented with an opportunity to do something, whether it's an event or making cookies or whatever it is, um, imagine yourself doing the thing and notice how that feels in your body. Does it feel light? Does it feel easeful and joyful? Or, so see how it feels, or does it feel heavy? And then imagine yourself not doing it. And how does that feel? And that can really give you some insight because our mind has these certain expectations and thought processes around it. And we often feel like we have to do the thing or we don't even think about it. It's just what we always do.
Mhm.
But paying attention to how the things actually feel internally can give you a lot of good guidance. Because really, ultimately, your family doesn't want you to be doing things, mostly that you don't want to do, right?
Mhm.
That is going to be a burden and a stress to you. So, you know
Yeah, yeah, that's so important. And I think we can also compare that to our intention. If we've if we've created an intention around what our holiday experience is,
Mhm.
we can also, we can check in with our body about how it feels, but we can also check in, does this fit with what I intended for my holiday experience to
Mhm.
be? So kind of again, that stepping back and taking the time to check in and to connect that with what you're wanting and seeing if that fits.
Yeah, and you can also perhaps make it explicit with your family or the people that you normally spend time with. You can have a family meeting about it and say, this is what I'm thinking about the holiday season and feeling, and so that you're all on the same page. And then when you make decisions that maybe are different than you've made in the past, everybody's kind of on the same page and understands, where that's coming from.
Mhm.
That's an option for in some
Yeah,
situations.
yeah, and it's always good to make things explicit.
Mhm.
To, and I've been surprised in the past. We've done that with our kids, and been surprised at what they didn't really care about.
Mhm.
Oh, that's not a big deal. Okay, well, we can let that go, I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's great.
so yeah, they don't always want all the things we think they want.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So getting clear about what's important. Um, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the overwhelm piece because, from a nervous system perspective, that too much
Mhm.
thing can feel on a nervous system level um, like a life threatening experience. Intellectually, we know it's not.
Mhm.
But when we get to that point where we're in overwhelm, which is that shutdown state, we're procrastinating, it's hard to move, we don't want to do anything. When it's we want to go crawl into a hole and hide, that's overwhelm, and that is your nervous system saying, this is too much, I can't do
Mhm.
this. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about how the things that are here in our world during the holiday season can kind of push that overwhelm. But you talked about, going into crowded stores, and I was thinking about, the Christmas music. Um, and another thing that's challenging for me is the lights
Mhm.
sometimes. Some of the lighting that people put on their homes is overwhelming for me.
Mm.
and it's so much sensory
Yes,
input. That's what I'm trying to get to.
sensory overload for sure.
Sensory overload.
There's a
There's
lot.
all kinds of sensory overload possibilities in the holiday.
Yeah,
And so you may be having a great time. You
yeah,
may be thinking this is fun, and I don't see why my body's responding this way, but it may simply be just on a sensory level
yeah.
that there is just too much. So one of the commenters mentioned that bye pre Black Friday sales, etc. And I was thinking, I see that in my emails. You know, 5 hours. The Black Friday sales are over in 5 hours. You got to buy now, and that brings up that fear of missing out, which is a marketing strategy,
It is.
and it is all about triggering our basic survival issues. And if you think about it, um, many thousands of years ago, when maybe we're hunter-gatherer society, um, missing out on getting something that you need
Mm,
could be deadly,
mm,
right? If you didn't get um, that deer you were hunting, your family may starve.
yeah.
So there is a survival component to that fear of missing out
Mhm.
piece, and the marketers know this and use this, and so it might be important to limit your exposure
Mm,
to some of those things. So maybe all those emails, make sure they're in your promotions folder, and don't look at them, or unsubscribe, or avoid listening to the certain radio stations, doing things that help limit how much of that you're exposed to is going to help your nervous system, because that can certainly trigger these survival states.
yeah, and I just wanna say too about the overwhelm, there can be a lot of self-judgment about that, especially if it seems to you that other people are handling everything just fine, and why
Hmm.
am I so overwhelmed? So 2 things about that. One is we don't know that other people are handling things just fine. Right? And social media kind of, plays to that or contributes to that, illusion.
Hmm.
And also, I don't know, there's just something about just respecting where your system is, whether you think in
Hmm.
your mind that's where it should be or not,
Yeah.
that's where it is. And if you
Hmm.
don't honor that, you're not gonna talk yourself out of it or push yourself out of it. At least that's not going to be a healthy option.
Hmm.
So just listening to where you actually are in this moment, and then making choices based on that, because a lot of times there are things that we want to do, and it's frustrating
Hmm.
if we feel like, oh gosh, it's just too much. So honoring where we are now and what do I need, to replenish myself.
Right. Yeah. And it's so important to do that. Um, there was something I was going to say about that, and I can't remember what it is now, but
Well, I think before we forget or run out of time today, I wanted to talk about the grief, and you had mentioned
yes, yes,
inviting that. If you want to talk about that, because I think that's
yeah,
really important.
yeah, yeah. So there was a post that I shared on Facebook recently that I really, really loved how they talked about it. So they were talking about inviting people who have recently experienced grief or loss to a family gathering or holiday gathering, and how you're not just inviting that person to your gathering, and you're not inviting them to try to cheer them up. That's not the goal.
Mhm.
But they said invite the grief too. Invite them to bring their grief with them,
Mhm.
whatever wherever they are, whatever they're experiencing, that is welcome also. And so inviting all the feelings, inviting people not being in a holiday mood, whatever that is, um, and doing that for ourselves as well. But that offering of you're welcome to come as you are with whatever you're carrying. We're not going to try to fix you
Mm,
or change you or make you happy.
mm,
But we would like to have you with us. We'd like to connect. So allowing for that connection and allowing them an opportunity for a graceful exit
I love
also.
that.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so you're welcome to come. We'd love to have you. If you don't feel up to it, it's fine.
Or if you
But
need to leave early,
yes,
that's
yes,
okay.
all of the things are
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah.
And emphasizing that connection and that sense of belonging and offering that. Um, so we can do that for other people. We can do it for ourselves.
Yes.
The same concept. Can we allow ourselves to feel whatever it is we're feeling?
Yeah.
And can we allow ourselves a graceful exit
Right.
when
Right.
we need to? And that's, I think, really the key
Yeah.
to caring for ourselves through the holidays.
I love that. And that kind of speaks to those expectations that we tend to have about the holidays being happy and
Mhm,
celebratory and cheerful. And if we're not there, then we feel like we don't belong,
mhm,
that we can't participate, or that, we're going to have to put on this false image. So giving others and ourselves that permission to be just as we are is
mhm,
just such a gift. And that graceful exit. I love that.
mhm.
Like you might not be able to stay the whole time, and that's okay.
Mm.
You don't have to explain yourself.
Yep,
And, you
yep,
know,
yep. And I was just thinking that applies too to like when we gather with family,
mhm,
um, the option to exit.
mhm,
Um, I have family members who have issues with sensory overload, and
mhm,
family gatherings are very difficult for them. And so sometimes they'll exit. They'll go find a bedroom and hang out by themselves for a while. And so having that awareness, and help the rest of us, for them to tell us,
mm,
these things are difficult for me.
mhm.
I can get overwhelmed, and sometimes I need to just go be by myself.
Yep,
And so, from my perspective, it's like, oh, sure, totally.
right.
Great, take care of yourself.
Yeah,
Um,
making things explicit.
yes, again, making it explicit is
Mhm,
important. Not everybody's going to be able to accept that.
mhm,
Um, there are people who don't understand.
mhm.
But it's important to give them the opportunity
Right, that's right. That's right.
to do that. Um,
Yeah,
and if you need to, then you exit completely. But
yeah,
um, so so having a clear intention, paying attention to how it feels in our body and how our body's responding to that,
yeah.
and being explicit
Mhm.
about wants and needs and what's happening. I think those are all really good
Yep, that
ways to approach
yep,
all
that's a
this.
good summary, and I would just add that acknowledging what's present, acknowledging all the different pieces that, are present with this
Mhm.
time for us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, good.
Good stuff, and I need to apply it to myself, so
Right, that's right. We teach what we need to learn, so.
exactly. Good reminders.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Well, thanks for watching and hope this is helpful. We'd love to hear your comments and experiences as always.
yeah, and happy holidays.
Yep. Happy holidays.